Welcome back to The Young Voter. So, what would you do if you held a rally and fundraiser and the political candidates you were supporting didn't show up? Well, that happened this past Saturday to Sarah Palin and Michael Steele when they held a fundraiser in Orange County, in Anaheim, California, to support Republican candidates for many offices in California and also in the Senate. What was very interesting was that the two most prominent Republicans running in California this election cycle, Meg Whitman for governor and Carly Fiorina for Senate, were not there. Now, you may be asking, why not? This would have been a great media opportunity, right? Standing right next to Sarah Palin, getting money and energizing the conservative base. Not exactly. Sarah Palin is not one of the most popular figures in California, or for that matter, the rest of the country. In fact, it appears that in a recent poll, her unfavorability rating, meaning the number of people that hold an unfavorable opinion of her, is roughly around 58%. Now that's far above President Obama's current unfavorability rating. And the strange thing is, Sarah Palin is very polarizing. You either love her or you hate her, and that really appears on the polls. People either intensely dislike her or they really like her. But there's really no middle ground, and independents are generally not fans of Sarah Palin. So the two Republican candidates running in California were rather shrewd not to show up to the rally because they don't want to be associated with Sarah Palin. California's registered Republicans are far outnumbered by its registered Democrats and independents, and both the independents and the Democrats do not like Sarah Palin. They do not like Sarah Palin, and in trying to court these voters, because both of these Republicans, both Meg Whitman and Carly Fiorina, are in tight races, and in fact, in the recent polls they've been behind, so they want to court all the votes they can get, especially independent voters, and fraternizing with Sarah Palin is not the way to go. She has incredibly low favorability numbers in the state. California is a relatively liberal state, pretty left of center, generally considered. But that's not even it. I mean, even if it were an independent state, Sarah Palin is not the person to hang around with. I mean, you can just imagine, okay, both Jerry Brown and Barbara Boxer running ads with Meg Whitman and Carly Fiorina standing right next to Sarah Palin, and the election would easily turn into a blowout. I mean, we saw how big Obama won. And again, Obama wasn't just running against Sarah Palin, it wasn't just a vote against Sarah Palin in the 2008 election, but we know how few votes Sarah Palin got in 2008 in California. Of course, the fundraiser was in Orange County, which of course went to John McCain, albeit narrowly, in 2008. So, Sarah Palin doesn't seem to be popular right now. Well, apparently, Sarah Palin and Michael Steele, the chairman of the Republican National Committee, Michael Steele, he's the one who last year was in that fight with Rush Limbaugh about who was the leader of the Republican Party, and of course, he's one of the few black Republicans around, maybe the only black Republican around. I mean, there's not much diversity in the Republican Party, but he's trying to represent it. And he got into an argument with Rush Limbaugh, and in the end, of course, he cowered to Rush Limbaugh. But either way, he's riding the whole Fire Pelosi train right now. They're having this little Tea Party Express little bus. He's going around with Sarah Palin. And then next Saturday, they're going to be in Orlando, Florida. And who is going to show up to that rally? Well, of course, Marco Rubio, Senate candidate in Florida, is of course going to show up at the rally. I mean, he's the most conservative of conservatives. I mean, he thinks climate change is a myth. Of course he does. He thinks, obviously, Social Security and Medicare should be gotten rid of. I mean, it's blatant socialism, obviously. I mean, up until a few years ago, Social Security and Medicare were fine. But no, now, of course, there's socialism, because Obama is in charge now. So obviously, Medicare and Social Security are blatant socialism. So, okay, that's nice. So Marco Rubio is going to attend this rally. Why? Well, there are varying degrees of popularity for Sarah Palin. In 2008, she was relatively popular in Florida, apparently. She drew massive crowds, and presumably she's going to do it again. And also, Marco Rubio is running on a more conservative platform. He is trying to appeal to very conservative voters and less centrist voters. Fewer independents are likely to break for him because he's fairly conservative. So he just wants to cement his base. So Sarah Palin is a great idea for Marco Rubio. But again, you're starting to see a crack in the Republican Party. Now, candidates like Meg Whitman and Carly Fiorina distancing themselves from the likes of Sarah Palin and Michael Steele, and Marco Rubio and other Tea Party-backed candidates, though Carly Fiorina is Tea Party-backed, but other candidates are shifting towards Sarah Palin. Now, why is this? Well, it seems that after November 3rd, the Republican Party may be in for a pretty long battle with itself. The thing is, there are a lot of Tea Party candidates that are going to be elected this election cycle. Let's face it, the Democrats are not going to win every election in which a Tea Party candidate is running. So there are going to be Tea Party candidates in Congress and in power, and they're going to clamor for their power. They're going to say, the people, we the people. They're going to have a we the people moment. They're going to say, the people sent us here because they are not happy with the establishment. And remember, the Tea Party claims to be just as much against the Republicans as against the Democrats, or at least the establishment of both parties. But of course, they're teaming up with Republicans to get rid of the Democrats, and then presumably they're going to take on the Republican establishment. Now, if they do, there's going to be a pretty strong back and forth, I think. Tea Party candidates have seriously undermined the strength of the Republican establishment, especially in the primaries, where people like Christine O'Donnell, Ken Buck, Carly Fiorina, Marco Rubio were able to defeat or push out of primary challenges strong Republican candidates, more centrist Republicans. Now, what happens after November 3rd is that the Republican Party is going to have to decide, are they going to move to the right with the Tea Partiers, or are they going to try to maintain a more centrist agenda? I mean, I'm not saying that the current Republican establishment is centrist. They're not. They're definitely right-wing. But are they going to move further to the right to be extremely right-wing? Because many Republicans in the establishment are not currently calling for the end of Social Security. They're not saying the minimum wage is unconstitutional. But a lot of Tea Partiers are. So if you're a Republican voting in this election, be aware that your party has two forces, and they're pulling in opposite directions. And will the party split? I don't think it's far enough along in the process to say. I don't want to be premature about this, but there certainly will be tension in the party. And the party will be weakened if this tension is allowed to progress. So we're going to see candidates further to the right and candidates trying to appeal to the center. Now, what does that mean about 2012? What does that mean about the presidential election? Well, you're going to have, most likely, and I'm pretty confident in predicting this, you're going to have a slew of right-wing, very right-wing, Tea Party-like candidates running in the Republican primaries, and you're going to have more centrist candidates. Now, I project it's going to be, in the end, a showdown between two. Some people have speculated it might be Sarah Palin or Mike Huckabee in the Tea Party vein, and perhaps Mitt Romney in the more centrist establishment vein. That's up for debate. But certainly there will be a tension there. Now, what does that do for the Republican Party's chances in 2012? Not just in the presidential election, but in the House elections. Well, that calls for a very messy primary season. in the House and Senate races, and gives Democrats a big opening in 2012. If the Democrats are going into this election behind, are going into 2010 behind, I predict the Democrats are going to do very well, or at least are going to have some sort of wind at their backs in 2012, because the Republicans are going to have been infighting. They're just going to have been infighting in the Republican Party for these 2 years, and they're still going to have to try to sort things out to a much greater extent than Obama and Clinton had to in 2008. Because Obama and Clinton, policy-wise, were not very different. Sarah Palin and Mitt Romney, policy-wise and ideology-wise, are very different. Mitt Romney is still right of center, but Sarah Palin is so far to the right, she doesn't even compare to Mitt Romney. So, we have to see, you have to see what is going to happen in 2012. Pay attention. And it's not just going to start in 2012. On November 3rd and afterwards, and once the new Congress sets in, see what the Tea Partiers do, because they're going to push to the right. They're going to try to push to the right. I don't think they're going to get much accomplished, because Obama's going to just veto any really extreme bills that they try to put in front of him. But you have to see how the Republican establishment tries to fight back. Who knows? It might be a big three-way race in 2012. Just like it's in Alaska right now. There's an establishment Republican running as a write-in candidate, Lisa Murkowski, Joe Miller running as the Republican candidate, and Scott McAdams running as the Democrat. Who knows? 2012 might be Obama versus someone on the Republican ticket, whether more centrist or Tea Party backed, and then someone else running as a third party as either, again, Tea Party or more centrist. That gives Obama not just the opportunity to win, but to crush his opposition. I'm not talking about a 50-state sweep here, but I'm talking about a big victory for Obama if this scenario plays out. Now, I'm not predicting this scenario will play out, but looking forward to 2012, if you're a Republican and you want to have any sort of hope of taking back the White House, you're going to have to figure out this whole Tea Party establishment thing well ahead of 2012. Because if the party is split at the convention and after, Obama is going to roll over you. He's going to steamroll you. He's going to take states that are normally solidly Republican, because the Republican vote is going to be split. You'll see Obama taking states like Kentucky or Tennessee, or even Mississippi. If he gets the black vote out, Mississippi was 38% for Obama in the last election, or 38, 41 around there. McCain got almost 60%, but if the vote is split on the Republican side, Obama could win with a plurality of the votes. These really conservative states. So, if you're a Republican, figure things out, and well ahead. That's my advice. Because you won't have much time in 2012. Alright. Thank you again for listening to The Young Voter.